Today, we're going to answer the question on how to rank your products on Amazon in 2026. It comes down to four key things that I think anyone selling on Amazon can improve. Today, I'm going to walk you through each of them. And at the end, I'm going to show you some other factors that maybe you haven't thought about or don't even know about that also contribute to how your products show up to customers. So the first thing that we're going to look at today is click-through rate. So click-through rate is simply the equation of how many people see your product relative to how many people actually click through to the PDP itself. So what click-through rate signals to Amazon is that your product is relevant, it is competitively priced, the main image is effective and engaging, and your offer seems aligned and a fair value. So what that looks like on Amazon.com is I've actually pulled up this example. This is natural energy drinks. And I wanted to show you visually what that means. So the click-through rate is going to be determined on the relative rate of how many people see your SKU or your product on this page and then ultimately click through. You can see that customers have a number of different options to choose from. So it's really important that we nail these things in order to improve or have our click-through rate at the benchmark level. So how do we improve our click-through rate? First, we need to A/B test our main image. So we need to test variations of the main image and test visual elements. So you'll see, for example, this brand here, Gorgie, is a sugar-free natural energy drink. But what they've done in their main image is actually add watermelon to the image itself. So why they did this was because, one, it communicates immediately what the flavor of the product is, but it also helps the product stand out from the rest of the search results. So if you scroll down, you see many of these options don't really include fruit as a part of their main image. So immediately, this sort of stands out in a very unique way. Another way that structure your main image is look at your category, look at how everyone else is structuring and placing the product in the main image, and try to find a different way of doing that. So Bloom has the 12 pack. A lot of these have the 12 pack in the main image with the main item or can up front. Zoa took a different approach where they have a side shot with the actual branding up front and center. So there's all kinds of different ways that you can be creative and test it, but look at your category and try to find unique ways to really just stand out and make it visually compelling. The second is going to be improving the offer. So Amazon customers specifically are very price sensitive simply because Amazon is a price comparison platform built in, right? You can see exactly what all the other brands are charging. And so it's really important that your initial price is competitive. We see here that we have a range of different prices from $30 down to $23. We have $18. Immediately, my mind goes to Celsius because it's only about 12 cents per fluid ounce. It's actually on sale. It's typically $19.98, but it's $17.98 right now. Why Bloom does have the first position in this case is because they have a bit of a higher ranking. Their price is at $23, which is quite lower than what it normally is. So the next thing is going to be about improving your offer. So Amazon customers are inherently very price sensitive. So it's important to have a competitively priced product. It'll make it much more difficult to be ranked on page one if your price point is significantly higher than the median price point that is on this particular search term or any particular search term. So there is a way that you can go and actually see what the median price is for any particular keyword. Now, this isn't going to change your whole, structure of your pricing and your margin profile, but it is important to know in the back of your mind how much, on average are products in your category. And then that way you can start to think about maybe offering discounts, promotions, or trying to build more value in your offer to generate that visibility and that relevance. And so we have a number of different prices here, everything from $23, which is on sale from $25, $30. This product is $60, and this is going to have a hard time, I think, getting clicks. And it's pretty obvious why. I mean, it's twice as much as a product that has 11,000 reviews at a 4.5. And we see that kind of across the board that this is a very competitive category. But you can see this product might have a hard time. The only reason that this is getting visibility this high up on the results page, right under the ads, is because it is a new product, and new products do get a bit of a leeway in ranking in the first 4 weeks. They call it the honeymoon period. That's another topic for another video, but that's why we're seeing that here. But typically what you're going to see is a lineup of products that have, a competitive price, really competitive reviews, and are in high demand, which we'll get into more detail of in just a second. Then third is going to be product titles. So the product title is really important because this is what people are reading about the product right away. And it's even more important than and how it renders on the actual PDP itself, because the title gets cut off on the search results page. We're looking at this on desktop. On mobile, it's even more restrictive, where only a portion of your title is going to be seen. So it's really important to add the value props that you've seen to be the strongest, whether it's through your meta ads, customer surveys, even the reviews that you currently have on Amazon. Make sure to include those at the front, so that way, when new customers are coming and browsing and looking for new products and new brands, that you're really hitting on those value props right out of the gate. And so this requires a bit of testing and trial and error, but you can do the A/B test inside of Seller Central, which allows you to determine which one is the most effective title. But generally, you need to ask yourself, what can I do to make my listing stand out from the rest of the listings on the search page? That's kind of like the rule of thumb question that I would use when thinking about click-through rate. The second, which I believe is the most heavily weighted, is your conversion rate. This signals to Amazon that your product is relevant, fairly priced, and the value is effectively communicated. This is the most important metric, and it is also benchmarked against category average. I think why this is the most heavily weighted metric and the most important metric, and if you're going to focus on any of them, it would be this, is because conversion rate is really the signal that tells Amazon and you that your product is positioned and priced in such a way that is getting people to literally pay money and purchase the product. So there's no better tell than actually having people take out their wallet and spend money. And so conversion rate is a really, really important part of all of this. And so how do you improve your conversion rate? Well, you need to A/B test your PDP images. So if we just jump into one of these SKUs here, if we just jump into Gorge, it is really, really important that these images here, these are called just the PDP images. Sometimes people will call them gallery images, carousel images. These render a little bit differently on mobile, and which is why these are actually so important for conversion rate, is because what you communicate in image 2, 3, and 4 is going to determine whether a customer fully understands the value that they're getting, fully understands what's in your product and what your product is doing, and any other details that you might need to explain about your product so customers can make a really educated buying decision. And so some criticism here right out of the gate, aside from their main image, this second image is not really doing anything to sell the product or sell the brand. And so I would probably move this image to the back of the carousel and probably move something up like this to the front. It speaks to better energy, better ingredients, and then highlights and calls out some of the key features here. But I would even go as far as, the criticism of this is they just can continue to repeat features as opposed to benefits. There's nothing about focus. There's not a lot about sustained energy. It's all about just what's in it. Green tea, caffeine, L-theanine, geosugar, 5 calories, biotin, vitamin B. And we see that here as caffeine. We got a bit of a quote here from some publications. They're just really not selling you what exactly this product will do for you other than what's in the actual product. And we're assuming that everyone understands what every single ingredient will do for them, but that's a bad assumption. I think we should try to communicate exactly what they should expect to feel or experience if they try this product. And so the order in these images are crucial and make a dramatic impact to the conversion rate. The next would be adding video. They've added a video here. Looks great. This is like a branded style video. Again, a little bit more on the lifestyle side. I would probably want to just focus on the product more than anything. The reason being is because people can see the different options very quickly. And if you just take up that time to just really show off the brand rather than speak to the product, you're going to have less chance of success on converting. Reviews, obviously very important. Reviews is very, very important. You want to make sure that you have as good a reviews as possible. One little note here is that you can actively try to remove non-compliant reviews. Now, this is a whole separate video, but there are a lot of reviews that are posted from customers that are actually against Amazon's terms of service. And so those might include reviews that mention other brand names, ones that actually don't speak to the product experience whatsoever. Maybe they're talking about shipping delays. Maybe they're talking about the way that the product showed up on their front door. It was smashed because of the delivery driver. These types of things can be challenged, and I highly encourage, going through your existing reviews and trying to find reviews that aren't compliant. And I think they only give you a certain timeline. I can't remember. I think it's 90 days to submit those requests to remove them. But it is something worth, always being on top of, which is something that, I always do for my clients. Okay. The fourth is improve offer. So you'll hear this theme a lot. The more we can improve the way the offer looks, and the value that customers are getting for what they're getting, the better. Coupons, price discounts, brand tailored promotions. And so this is great. They have a subscribe and save coupon. Highly recommend this if you're in CPG, but even just a one-time coupon can help the perceived value of your listing. There's things like strike through pricing that you can do. I'm not on the side of, heavily promoting just for the sake of promoting. All of this has to align with margin profile. All of this has to be profitable. It has to align with your other channels, of course. But the more like deals and discounts and things that visually look good on the PDP, the better. Amazon has always been a place that customers have looked for deals. That is sort of how they built their reputation, is that they are a platform which you can find the best price. Of course, that's sort of changed over the years, where now sometimes the best price is not always on Amazon, but nonetheless, the customer is sort of expecting deals and discounts and these types of things. So the more that you can add that, the better. And then lastly is improving delivery time. So this one is a little bit more on the operations side. The more inventory that you can send to Amazon's FBA, the better, because that allows Amazon to distribute your product to more customers across the country. So if you only have, a few hundred units, or you're only replenishing like your 30-day, 4-week supply of units, that is not enough inventory for Amazon to spread it across the country. So let's say your warehouse is in the southeast of the United States and your most recent shipment went to a warehouse in the southeast. Amazon will distribute some of that product to the northeast, to the West Coast, to the Midwest. But if you don't have enough, and not enough units will be spread to these places. And what'll happen is customers who are searching using these keywords won't actually see your product as often as if you did have more inventory. The reason being is because Amazon is trying to get products into customers' hands as quickly as possible. And if a majority of your units are stuck, somewhere in the south, and let's say there's a customer up in Seattle, and that product can't get there within that promised shipping window that Amazon does, which is like 2-day shipping, you're just not going to show up on the results when they search, which is going to limit the amount of sales that you can generate. So this is a delicate balance, but I recommend looking at your last 12 weeks of inventory. And if you can afford to send close to about 10 to 12 weeks of inventory, that's just a rule of thumb. Of course, every brand, every product is going to be a little bit different, but the more you can send, the better, because the more people are going to see it and the higher your conversion rate will be, and ultimately the higher you will rank. So why should customers buy your product and not competitors? These are the questions that you should ask yourself. Why should customers buy your product and not competitors? And can I improve the way I am positioning my brand or product? So a lot of these questions are going to be asked through a buyer insights report. This is something that we do internally, which is just a report and a combination of different factors that go into, understanding who your customer is and trying to speak to that customer persona as closely as possible. Because if you're in the supplement space, it might be easy to assume that this benefit is what everyone talks about, and thus this must be the thing that we must talk about. When in reality, if you dive a little bit deeper and go a layer deeper, there's a lot of other things that typically drive customers to a purchase that might not be so obvious without doing that, in-depth work. So that's another video, but doing some really in-depth customer persona work is going to prove valuable. Okay, the third is going to be AOV. So the higher average order value you're able to generate, the more favorable Amazon will rank you. If you can generate a higher AOV than a competitor who is selling almost the same product while competitively maintaining the click-through rate and the conversion rate, the ranking algorithm will give you a favorable placement. So the question is, why does this happen? So this is my theory. This is not explicitly said by Amazon, but Amazon makes 15% of every sale. So if you're able to increase their referral fees, or and thus their commission, the 15%, while offering customers better value through the offer, the reviews, the return rates being low, and every party is happy, Amazon, the customer, and you, then they will show your product to more customers. I have tried this and it does work. I've ran a test where I've increased the price by just 10%, and the conversion rate fundamentally did not change. But the bestseller rank inside of the category and the organic keyword ranking did improve. So Amazon does not mind if you increase the price as long as the value you're getting and all of these key metrics stay relatively the same. Now, if you increase price and conversion rate drops, well, like we just talked about, conversion rate is a big factor in ranking. That's going to hit your rankings. But if you increase the price and your conversion rate stays the same, then Amazon's going to say, hey, this must still be a value. It must have been underpriced previously. Let's serve this to more customers and continue to see how this does. So that is a big thing. So how do you increase AOV? AOV is increased by either a multi-unit discount. So this is a simple way you could do this today, where you create a promotion where you offer a percentage off for buying 2 or 3 units. Price testing, I just touched on that. If you increase or test your price and increase it by 5 to 10% at a time, it's worth seeing whether it impacts your click-through rate or your conversion rate. Don't go higher than 10% out of the gate, because more than 10% might actually suppress the listing. So just keep it under 10%, give it a couple weeks, collect the data, and then if you feel confident, you can increase it another 10%. Creating multi-unit packs or bundles. So this is a little different than offering a multi-unit discount. This means actually physically creating a multi-unit pack. And so why this is different is because this will actually create its own SKU or ASIN, and you'll be able to use the benefits of a product title, of the bullet points, of new imagery to really build the value of a multi-pack, and it'll become a variation on your single pack. And so that's the benefit of going through the hard work of building a multi-pack, but it could be worth it and worth testing. If you sell multiple flavors of a certain product, bundles are great. Variety pack bundles are great. If we jump back to Amazon, this brand here does exactly that. They have a bestseller bundle. So they've taken their best selling flavors and created a bestseller variety. I'm sure this absolutely crushes. And then this original variety pack must have been their first one. And these two probably do an amazing job of getting new customers, because now, they're trying different flavors. And then, if customers like it, they can go buy the variety of different single pack flavors. They've even got a tropical variety. So this brand is absolutely crushing it from that perspective. And then the fourth is going to be enabling B2B discounts. So Amazon, if you don't know already, has an Amazon business platform. It's basically Amazon.com. It looks a little different, but it's for people who have an Amazon Prime business account. And this is really important because if you're selling a CPG, like if you're selling energy drinks or snacks or food products, anything that people can eat, on a lunch break, that is actually a huge opportunity for you, because B2B discounts allows you to get more visibility on the B2B platform. And why the B2B platform is so valuable is because the people buying on there are typically business owners, office managers, secretaries, people who manage a kitchen that is shared by maybe dozens of employees. And what that means is typically they're going to be buying in bulk. So if you're selling cases of soda, chips, like there's no easier way to sell multiple units of those than getting in front of business buyers who have bigger budgets and are willing to spend more. Going back to number 3, bundles and multi-unit packs. Amazon customers are very similar to like the Costco customer, where they're looking for value. And they're actually, if you think about it, most Prime members are paying for that additional value with their Prime membership that they spend like $120 a year on. And so if you can build bigger bundles with bigger AOVs and give them more value, you're going to have success with that. And so, because again, similar to like the B2B owners, you're going to have heads of household, moms, family members buying for families which have, people eating and trying these snacks and filling pantries. And so sometimes it might be counterintuitive where you think a bundle is going to cost more, so thus it's going to hurt. It actually might be the opposite, where people will actually prefer the bigger value pack as opposed to a non-value pack. So Ask yourself, how can we get more customers to buy more than one unit, especially important for products that don't include a subscription component. So if you're a one-time purchase type of product, it is really, really important to try to build up that AOV as best you can, because typically that person won't come back and buy a second time. And so, but in most cases, most brands that I work with, at least, they have a subscription mechanism built into their business model. Okay, the fourth is going to be demand. So this is how much you sell in a given amount of time relative to the other products in your category will heavily determine how favorable Amazon ranks your product. It's a combination of click-through rate, conversion rate, and AOV, but traffic, which then equals sales, or thus a demand, is ultimately what decides how well every other metric does, right? So the quality of your traffic. So the first way to approach this is through Amazon ads. It's the fastest and most reliable. It's native to Amazon. You can set it up literally today. You just select which keywords, which competitor ASINs, which placements you want to target, and you just let it rip. This will create demand because it'll show your products in places that your product won't be shown otherwise. And so this demand that is created will be measured. And so all of the click-through rate, the conversion rate, the actual sessions or page views that your page is generated through Amazon ads is all going to account towards like your listings score. So make sure that you're targeting relevant keywords. You don't want to be targeting keywords that have a low conversion rate and drag down your overall page conversion rate, or even a low click-through rate for the same reason. You want to basically be driving traffic to the most relevant keywords to help support all of these metrics, so that way Amazon, sees that your product has a high conversion rate relative to the others. The second is going to be external traffic. So direct traffic from email lists or paid ads on Meta or Google to Amazon. So there's a number of ways that you can approach this. There's not a one size fits all approach to this, but if you can direct traffic from an email list, that's not a bad idea. If you have an email list of customers, maybe your most loyal or people who haven't been purchasing from you for a while, send them an Amazon email campaign, even maybe offer them a promo. That external traffic is actually weighted pretty heavily in terms of ranking. Amazon loves that brands submit and drive people from wherever they are on the internet to Amazon.com. They reward that heavily. And then there's even a way where you can get 10% back on those sales through a brand referral link. So if you want to know more about that, make sure you just click the link and get on a call with me. I'm happy to explain that in more detail, but it's a great way to just make your advertising more efficient. People from Meta and Google, so whether they are clicking on your ad and it's going straight to Amazon, or whether they're seeing your ad and then they're going to Amazon themselves and searching for your brand, regardless, all of that external traffic is going to support your ranking. And then of course, organic traffic. And this is kind of where we close the loop on the flywheel. So organic traffic is a function of everything that we just talked about today. And it works in a flywheel, right? You only get organic traffic if you have a high click-through rate and you have a high conversion rate and your AOV is aligned with the category. And then from there, the organic traffic will help support those metrics, and those metrics will help support organic traffic. And that's a bit of the flywheel. And that's probably another video that I'll make about the flywheel and just sort of visualizing what that looks like. So make sure to subscribe to see that when I finally get around to making that. But ask yourself, how can I pull all three levers to help make shoppers see my product or brand? Again, what are the ways that you can get traffic to Amazon? Amazon ads, external traffic, organic traffic. Those are the three main ways. And the more of it you can send, the better. You can also download and use tools like Helium 10, which will actually tell you how many units you need to sell on a particular keyword in order to rank for that keyword. It's kind of a good measuring stick to let you know and give you a sense of which keywords are, worth pursuing and how competitive you need to be. And all of that will help kind of back out how much traffic you need to send if you know your metrics. Okay, I promised at the beginning of the video that I would share some additional factors that go into ranking. Now, this is not an exhaustive list. There's probably a lot more. Actually, there's definitely a lot more ranking factors that exist. The algorithm is getting more and more sophisticated, and in 2026, we'll probably see more integrations with AI. But here are some other factors that I've known that have helped with organic ranking. So most recent reviews. So not all Amazon reviews are created equal. The more recent ones are the most relevant, are weighted the heaviest. So if you're starting to get really good reviews, maybe you've improved your product or your formulation, the most recent reviews are going to be weighted more heavily as opposed to older ones, because Amazon understands that these things do change. And then if your product's been around for a couple of years, reviews that happened a couple of years ago are just not going to be as relevant as reviews that happened maybe in the past 30 days. Second is return rates and A through Z claims. So if your return rate's really high relative to the competition, or you're getting a lot of like claims about your product expired, for example, is a big one, that'll hurt your ranking. Amazon doesn't want to show products that have high return rates. That's not a good customer experience for the Amazon customer. Your seller rating. So your seller rating, if we just jump back into here, can be found in Seller Central, but it can also be found here by clicking on the brand name. You can see here this company here has an 82% positive in the last 12 months. This seller rating has a lot to do with if you're fulfilling by merchant, how you handle customer service, and a number of different things. But it's important just to keep in mind, keep that over 4.0. If you don't keep it over 4.0, it can limit your ability to run certain coupons and run like Prime Day deals and Black Friday deals and all these other things that are really cool to run for your brand during these events. So it's important that your seller rating is really, really strong, because again, Amazon doesn't really want to show sellers that don't have a strong rating or that customers have had a bad experience with. The fourth is going to be lifetime value repeat purchase rate. So this again is a little lesser known, but repeat purchase rate, if you think about it logically, the more customers buy a product over and over again, or in other words, like subscribe to a product, the better that your product is going to be seen through the eyes of Amazon, right? It's just another signal that's going to tell Amazon that your product is satisfying customers. It's good value. Customers are happy with what they're getting. And if you're able to stay in stock and continue to fulfill those demands of those repeat purchasers, then all of those different things in collection are going to help your organic ranking. Now, this, again, is not a complete list of everything. There's a lot of different factors that go into it, including where the customer is searching from, time of day, you name it. But it is important to understand these factors as a guide to getting you closer to improving your ranking. Now, the last thing I'll say about this is that you'll probably come across keyword tracking tools, which are super, important in understanding of where you rank for certain keywords. What I don't like about them is that it only captures a moment in time. So if you look at these reports, it'll say that maybe you're ranked number 15. But in reality, what happens is the rankings are shuffling all the time, and it's only capturing a moment of time. So it could send a false signal on how well or even how poorly your product is doing. And so what I actually look to summarize all of this, I would recommend looking at your best seller rank. And so I have this tool here. This is called Keepa. This tool basically allows you to see over the history of the product how well you've ranked in the category. And I think this is a more of an accurate signal to how well your ranking is improving across all keywords that are you're relevant for. Because the lower that this green bar goes, the more highly ranked you are. And so this is actually a pretty good example where we see that the ranking was 700, and then it looks like as we approach Black Friday, it dropped because the demand and thus the conversion rate, the traffic, all the things that we talked about improved, and thus the organic ranking went down. And so we can see a pretty consistent, ranking of 300 in the overall category. Now there's even subcategories you can look at. They're in grocery and gourmet. And we can look at the energy drink category. They're ranked 348 in grocery and gourmet, and then 26 in energy drinks with an estimate of 1,000 units sold. But if we pull back, we can see at one point that wasn't the case. They were, 177 in energy drinks and 12,000 in grocery and gourmet. And there was quite a bit of fluctuation happening as the algorithm's trying to find its place. And then over time, as sales got more and more consistent, we see these fluctuations go down and the line gets smoother over time. So that's typically what you want to see, is that line stay nice and low and smooth over time. That is more of a directionally accurate approach to how well you're ranking organically across all keywords, as well as like how much demand you're generating and etc. That's all I got for today's video. Please please subscribe. I'm going to be sharing more insights, ideas, tips, and things around Amazon ads, Amazon optimization, strategy, you name it, in these sort of casual videos here on YouTube. So make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll catch you on the next one.